Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilboy, the FX Market Insight for the 3rd of July. All right, now let's just have a look where the currencies have all sort of reconnected after the weekend. Now, we have seen a bit of dollar strength, and that's been put down to increased global trade tensions. Okay, and I'll come to that in a minute. Trump is hitting the World Trade Organization, saying basically we're going to go crazy if they start putting tariffs on the US, etc., etc. It's all a bit weird, but basically we've seen the US dollar rally. Aussie and Kiwi sort of just drifting lower. You can see the US 10 years, the orange bar here, sort of starting to rally. Dollar yen isn't really having much to do with it at this stage. It's slowly climbing, but I actually think this is set up perfectly for a bit of a meltdown on the global trade front. And I think I'm looking to sort of get into a short position there if it breaks down through the cloud. Now, euro trading sideways, but there's all these migration, obviously a massive issue for Germany and most of Europe for that matter. It has kept it in a bit of a range-bound market. No one really wants to take it above 117, and no one's really willing to push it down under 115 at the moment. So it's in a bit of a stalemate. Sterling, well, it's trading sideways. We had slightly stronger manufacturing data yesterday, but there's a cabinet meeting later in the week. Big Brexit cabinet meeting. So there's a bit of uncertainty around that, and it's still sitting around, it's sort of 6 or 8 month lows. Dollar CAD, well, we are starting to see some support and resistance sort of shape up. The Saudis have increased output. Funnily enough, oil has not budged. So I'm not sure how much they've increased by, but there's not a lot to go by just at the moment. Now, if I just come back over here, just quickly before I go on to run down through where the major news items are, just have a look at the US dollar. Now, this gives you a bit more of a better look at what is actually happening on the dollar. If anything, yes, it's slightly higher on the day, but overall, it's just trading sideways. So don't get fooled by the media thinking the dollar's going through the roof, because it's not. Okay, sure, on a daily perspective, it's still moving higher. We do have sort of support down here around 94.75 or 94 sort of 30, I should say. So we're going to wait and see. I think we're primed for a Trump or a Chinese backlash on this trade tariff stuff. And that'll give us a bit of an opportunity on dollar yen, I think. Now, US equities, as you can see, well, it's going to be a short week for the US with the 4th of July holiday. Equities pretty flat. The Nikkei likes it though. It's due to open up 110 points up. So just keep an eye on those Asian equities. The Nikkei being the focal point for that. Now, if I just come back, let's have a look at the news. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, and we're waiting for the prime data now. It hasn't come as yet. We are looking for there's some bigger economic numbers coming up. So just hold your horses a little bit if you're looking for sort of clear direction. This is what we're talking about. Dollar rises as trade tensions attract safe haven bids. Now, the US dollar is a safe haven in times of uncertainty, and the uncertainty is this guy here. Okay, so he's just throwing barbs at everyone now. Not only the European Union, also the World Trade Organization. He's ready to go crazy, which you think he's definitely going to do. So that's why I think dollar yen, if the Chinese get involved, then I think we could see dollar yen just have a huge split to the downside. But just coming back over here, OPEC oil output climbs in June as Saudi opens taps. Well, as I said, that hasn't had any impact on the price of oil, so I don't know what they're really talking about. Sterling slumps as Brexit crunch nears. This is this cabinet meeting they're talking about later in the week. And the rest of it is sort of emerging currencies. Chinese, the yuan has been sliding, right? So that's been pushing Aussie and Kiwi lower. So just keep an eye on this one. It's going to be a developing story. The more pressure the US puts on them, the weaker the Chinese yuan goes, and that actually suits them. A lower yuan makes them sell more stuff. So Trump is actually playing the game perfectly for the Chinese. But as you can see, there's not a lot of the stuff on this news page is all geopolitical crap, right? And that doesn't really do a hell of a lot for us. So the idea is just keep focusing on what's coming up. Okay, so we've got the equity markets, just sort of, as I said, pretty subtle moves. Now, we don't have a hell of a lot. It's only coming into Tuesday. Don't forget, we've got the holiday in the US on Wednesday. And usually when the US has a holiday, the whole globe takes a holiday. As far as trading conditions go, we've still got a few geopolitical issues swirling. but otherwise, the currencies are behaving reasonably well. It's just the sporadic movements off those geopolitical issues, which is a tough one to gauge. Now, just looking at the sort of key data coming out today, we've got the RBA interest rate decision and statement. Now, we don't expect much out of the RBA. They've been rather empty the last sort of 12 months, so I expect that to continue. The UK construction PMI, well, we saw the manufacturing PMI numbers yesterday, slightly better, 0.4% better. It went up about 10 points, and that's about it. So it's going to be interesting whether this UK construction PMI, it has to be rather variant, right? Decent sized variance to get it moving. Otherwise, this cabinet meeting later in the week in the UK is going to dominate the overall direction of sterling, and that is sporadic at best. So we've only got 2 major releases there, so don't sort of get yourself all excited and think you're going to be banging around, because there's not a lot to happen. Now, just coming across the daily analysis snapshot, I mean, you can see there's I mean, I like the Aussie and Kiwi. They are sort of breaking down on all sort of time frames. So I'm looking to be selling those pairs, and that's where the RBA comes in. So for the Aussie, but we do have a few geopolitical events. Obviously, dollar CAD is well entrenched in it, with oil. NAFTA's being apparently rolled back till November. Europe, okay, well, Euro, we've got you know, the ECB have been pushed aside. Basically, the German, well, the lack of government, a coalition breakdown is a major issue, and that's really concentrated on the migration deals they're trying to work out through Europe. It looks like they're getting a deal, but nothing's concrete at this stage. Sterling is a real tough one at the moment. Fundamentally, to me, it should be going higher, but technically it's going down. So I'm just sort of waiting for clearer direction. And that's primarily going to come back down to, as I said, that cabinet meeting in the UK later in the week. If you come down, like dollar yen, okay, the beast, the sleeping giant, I mean, daily, it's starting to slowly climb higher, and on the hourlies, it's slowly climbing higher. So really, it is going up. So I should be looking to buy, but it's really, we don't have that clear direction. And these trade wars are the potential to push that thing down in a heartbeat. So that's what I'm still looking at there. And funnily enough, just, I mean, going along, doing its thing, I still think, I mean, fundamentally, the US dollar, it's a strong buy. I mean, fundamentally, it's strong. The data's been strong. You know, on the longer term picture, it's going up sideways on the hourlies. So overall, I mean, we are starting to get a bit of a fundamental outlook, but it is conflicting with the technicals, okay? So bear in mind, this isn't like perfect. What you're looking for is the fundamentals and the technicals to line up. That's when we have easy trades. At the moment, there's not a hell of a lot. If anything, to me, the dollar is the one trade, one currency that looks like it should just keep going up, especially with all the uncertainty around the trade wars. And if they keep buying the US dollar as a bit of a safe haven, then it should continue higher, and that will continue to drive the Aussie and Kiwi lower. As I said, you want to keep an eye on the yuan there. It is screaming to the top side. If I just come back over here just to get that up and have to give you a look, it's something I've been looking at the last week. Okay, so it's just wait for that screen to populate. Okay, so you can have a look here. It's in a serious uptrend now. If anything, you can actually start to draw a sort of secondary support line. I'm not through that point over here. So, I mean, it's just climbing. This is, you know, it's going back to June 14. So I think there's a pretty good chance once this thing breaks down, it's pretty hard to get into the move now. But if it does break down, you should start to see Aussie and Kiwi escalate to the top side very quickly. So that's worth keeping a very close eye on. Now, also, if I just come back to, I want to give you a look at the yen crosses. Now, these pairs are, let's move this out of the way, are starting to sort of form some shape. Now, as I said, dollar yen isn't really sort of going anywhere. It's in a nice, steady uptrend. No one is really looking to buy it aggressively because it's the trade war issues, especially China. China have been stealthily quiet the last 2 weeks. Okay, ever since Trump sort of threatened them with going to $200 billion in trade tariffs, I expect some sort of retaliation from China. They are going about business quite cleverly. And so in that, even though I I think dollar yen keeps going higher, my China or US China trade insurance policy is basically looking for a breakdown in dollar yen. Now, the other yen crosses, okay, they're sort of banging away sideways. We are starting to see some shape. Just bear in mind, we're probably a few days out from them sort of really giving us something tangible. As I said, dollar yen's the main one we need to be moving to really get those going. All right, guys. Well, that's the FX Market Insight for today. Have a good session. I'll catch you in the trade zone. If you have any questions, send us an email. All right, cheerio.